Hi, welcome to Alignment by Tuva. My name is Tuva Marina. I am a somatic coach, a huge nervous system nerd, and right now I'm someone who is in the middle of one of the most personally revealing journeys I have ever taken, a gut healing protocol. And today I want to share what I have discovered, not from the other side of it because I'm not there yet, but I want to share from inside it because what I am learning is kind of too important to wait. I also want to be honest with you from the start. I'm sharing this because the science behind it is rigorous and real, and I want you to have access to it right now. And I think the most useful thing I can do is bring you with me into the process, into the learning, and into the questions, rather than wait until I have a tidy transformation story to deliver from a safe distance. And I want to start by describing my morning. And it is not a dramatic morning. For me, it's a very completely ordinary morning. And if I'm being honest, more common than I want to admit. So I wake up before I have a single conversation, before I have opened my phone, before the day has made any demands at all, I am already calculating. What did I eat yesterday? How did my stomach feel when I woke up this morning? What can I eat this morning that will not trigger a reaction and that will support my hormones and will not cause bloating or inflammation or send my energy crashing by 11 o'clock? So I have my breakfast at home, the same things roughly every morning, things that I know, things that I trust. And that part feels fine. It feels like discipline, like I'm taking care of myself. But then comes the plan to go out for breakfast with a friend. And something in me immediately starts to calculate again. Like, can I find something on the menu that works? What oil do they cook their eggs in? Is the porridge made with dairy? What if the only option is something that triggers a reaction and I spend the rest of the day managing the consequences? And so I'm there, I'm sitting across from a friend that I love at a beautiful cafe, but I'm not there. I'm in my head, I'm running numbers, I'm managing variables, and I'm trying to make food safe in an environment that I cannot control. And I want to be precise about what that experience actually is. Because for a long time, I called it being health conscious. I called it discipline. I called it knowing my body. But when I got my microbiome tested through Gutsy, which is a platform designed for women's gut health, I saw my actual data and I understood something that I had not really been willing to fully look at before. The calculation was not discipline. It was a nervous system in a state of chronic alert, using food control as the one variable it could manage when the internal environment felt unpredictable and unsafe. My gut was so reactive, so inflamed, so out of balance that food had stopped being nourishment and it became something I treated as a threat assessment. And the mental energy that was consuming, the space it was taking up in my brain, in my social presence, in my capacity to just be somewhere without the background noise was significant. I did not fully realize how significant until I started to understand the science behind why it was happening. The controlling relationship with food was not a character trait, it was a symptom. And symptoms have biological causes that can be addressed. That is what made me start this protocol. And that is what this episode is about. Not only what to eat, but why your gut may be running your emotional life and what the science says about what becomes possible when you start to work with it. So let me first give you the science, because I think once you understand what is actually happening in your gut and why it has such a profound effect on your nervous system, your anxiety, your mood, and your relationship with food, you will never think about digestion in the same way again. We're going to cover 5 things: the enteric nervous system, the gut-brain axis and the vagus nerve, serotonin and what your gut has to do with it, and the microbiome and neurotransmitter production. And also I want to talk about blood sugar and nervous system connection because that's a big piece. And each one is a piece of the same picture. By the end, the picture will be complete for you, I promise. So most people think of the nervous system as the brain and the spinal cord, but there is a third branch that almost nobody talks about, and that lives inside your gut. The enteric nervous system is a network of some 500 million neurons lining your gastrointestinal tract from esophagus to colon. 500 million. To put that in context, your spinal cord contains 100 million neurons. Did you hear that? Your gut has 5 times more neurons than your spinal cord. And researchers call it the second brain for that reason. And not as a metaphor, as a literal description of its complexity, its autonomy, and its capacity to function independently of the brain above. Your enteric nervous system regulates every aspect of digestion, muscle contraction, enzyme secretion, blood flow, immune response, largely without instructions from the brain. It is running its own show, and it is in constant bidirectional communication with your central nervous system for a very specific pathway that, if you have been listening to this podcast for a while, is going to sound very familiar. The vagus nerve is the primary communication highway between your gut and your brain. We covered the vagus nerve in depth in episode 67, but there is a specific function that I want to go deeper on today because it is directly relevant to everything that we are talking about. About 80 to 90% of the fibers in the vagus nerve carry information upward. So from the gut up to the brain. And it's not the other way around. Your gut is talking to your brain far more than your brain is talking to your gut. The signals traveling up the vagus nerve from your gastrointestinal system are directly influencing your mood, your anxiety levels, your stress response, and your emotional state in real time. When the gut is inflamed, when the microbiome is dysregulated, and when digestion is compromised, those signals traveling upward are distress signals, and your brain receives them and generates the corresponding emotional and physiological response, which often looks like anxiety without any clear source, mood instability, brain fog, and a nervous system that cannot fully settle no matter what you do from the top down. This is something I am experiencing directly right now in this protocol. Even in 2 weeks, addressing the gut is doing something that breathing exercises and somatic practices alone were not fully reaching. And not because those practices are not valuable, they are valuable, profoundly valuable, but because you cannot fully regulate from the top down if bottom is in chaos. Both layers need attention simultaneously. You cannot think your way out of a gut problem, and you cannot fully regulate your nervous system while your gut is sending distress signals to your brain 80% of the time. Serotonin is often described as the happiness neurotransmitter, the chemical associated with feeling good, feeling regulated, and feeling like life is manageable. And when people talk about anxiety and depression and mood, serotonin is almost always part of the conversation, and usually in the context of the brain. But what most people do not actually know is that about 90 to 95% of your body's serotonin is produced not in the brain, but in the gut. 90 to 95%. In the gut. Your gut is your primary serotonin production facility, and the health of your gut lining, the diversity and balance of your microbiome, and the state of your enteric nervous system directly influence how much serotonin your body can produce, and how much it can regulate, and how much it can utilize. Which means, if your gut is inflamed, if your microbiome is depleted, and if your intestinal lining is compromised, your serotonin production is compromised. And compromised serotonin does not just affect your mood, it affects your sleep, your appetite regulation, your pain sensitivity, your social behavior, and your capacity to feel safe in your own body. The anxiety you thought was coming from your thoughts may have had a significant biological component, and that biological component may be living in your gut. This realization, when I really sat with it, explained so much about experience I had chalked up to my personality or mindset for years. Your gut microbiome, the trillions of bacteria, fungi, and other microorganisms living in your gastrointestinal tract, is not just a digestion system. It is a neurotransmitter factory. Specific strains of gut bacteria produce and regulate GABA. It is directly responsible for feelings of calm and the reduction of anxiety. They produce dopamine precursors. They synthesize short-chain fatty acids that cross the blood-brain barrier and directly influence brain function and neuroinflammation. They communicate with the immune system in ways that regulate systemic inflammation. And neuroinflammation is now understood to be a contributing factor in depression, anxiety, and cognitive decline. So when the microbiome is diverse, balanced, and populated with the right bacterial communities, this system runs well. Your nervous system has what it needs, your neurotransmitter production is supported, your inflammatory response is regulated. When the microbiome is dysregulated through antibiotic use, chronic stress, a diet low in diversity and fiber, or hormonal shifts, the factory is compromised, and the downstream effects are felt not just in the gut, but in the brain, the mood, the nervous system, and the emotional experience of daily life. Getting my microbiome tested through Gutsy gave me a precise picture of exactly what was depleted and what needed to be rebuilt. And seeing that data was one of the most clarifying moments of this entire journey because it moved the conversation from vague symptoms to specific addressable biology. And I have a discount code with Gutsy that I will link in the show notes if you want to understand your own gut at that level. So the final piece connects food most directly to nervous system state, and it explains why what you eat and how you eat matters so profoundly beyond nutrition alone. Your blood sugar, the level of glucose circulating in your bloodstream at any given moment, has a direct and immediate effect on your autonomic nervous system. When blood sugar drops rapidly after a spike from a high sugar meal or after going too long without eating, your body reads it as a stress event. The adrenal glands release cortisol and adrenaline. Your sympathetic nervous system activates, and from the inside, this often feels like anxiety, like sudden anxiety, irritability, difficulty concentrating, or a sense of unease that has no obvious external cause. Heart palpitation, the feeling that something is wrong without knowing what it is. These are not psychological experiences. These are physiological events generated by a blood sugar swing that the brain then interprets through whatever narrative is most available. And for someone already running anxious, the brain finds a reason. For someone in a social setting, it lands as social anxiety. For someone at their desk, it becomes dread about a work situation that felt manageable an hour ago. Stabilizing blood sugar is one of the most direct tools for nervous system regulation available to you. And it is available 3 times a day at every meal, which brings me to the practice. And I want to be clear what I mean, because I'm not going to give you a food list or a supplement protocol. Not because those don't matter, they matter. They matter, they are in my protocol. They matter enormously, and I will point you toward the deeper work in a moment. But because the place I want to start is more foundational than what you eat. It is the state you are in when you eat. And the physiology behind this, your vagus nerve controls the entire digestive cascade. Stomach acid production, enzyme secretion, bile release, intestinal motility, all of it is regulated by the parasympathetic branch of your autonomic nervous system. That is the branch that is only fully active when your body feels safe, when you are in rest and digest and not in fight or flight. Which means if you are eating in a sympathetic state, standing at the counter, scrolling your phone, eating quickly between things, already running the calculation before the first bite, your body is not physiologically capable of fully digesting what you are eating. The digestive cascade is suppressed. Stomach acid is reduced, enzymes are not fully secreted, and the food you just ate, however carefully chosen, is not being properly broken down and absorbed. This is something I have been working with directly in the protocol. Slowing down the eating, creating parasympathetic conditions before I start. And even in a short time, the difference in how my digestion feels is noticeable. Not because the food changed, it changed a little bit, but I also changed the state I am eating in. And you cannot digest well in a state of stress. And you cannot absorb the nutrients your nervous system needs if your nervous system is the reason digestion is compromised. So what I do is a simple somatic eating practice, and you start today before you eat. Okay. So before you eat any meal, any snack, anything, take 3 extended exhale breaths. You inhale for 4 counts and exhale for 8. 3 times 30 seconds. And what those 30 seconds do physiologically is that the extended exhale directly activates the vagus nerve and shifts your autonomic nervous system from sympathetic toward parasympathetic. And stomach acid production start to increase, and the digestive enzymes, they begin to activate, and your intestinal muscles prepare to receive food. So you are creating in 30 seconds the internal conditions in which digestion and therefore absorption and therefore neurotransmitter production and therefore nervous system regulation can actually happen. Then sit down, not on the sofa with your phone, but at a table or somewhere intentional. Phone away or face down, and eat slowly. Eat slowly enough to actually taste what is in front of you. Chew your food. Put your fork down between the bites. Notice the flavors. Notice when you begin to feel satisfied. You're not just eating more mindfully. You're activating a physiological system that needs specific conditions to run properly. And you are providing those conditions through the way you eat. This is the one thing I want you to take from this episode today. 3 breaths before every meal. Sit down, slow down, phone away. That shift alone, if you do it consistently, that will begin to change the quality of your digestion, your absorption, and the signals your gut is sending upward to your brain. The calculation may not disappear overnight, but you are addressing the biological environment that is generating it. And that is where the real shift begins. And for the listener who is now asking the next question, okay, but what do I actually eat to support this? How do I rebuild the microbiome? What does a gut healing protocol actually look like day by day? I want to point you somewhere specific. I have built a 30-day guide called Making Peace with Your Body. It is a 30-day low histamine reset. I built it from inside my own gut healing journey, from the research I did, the microbiome testing, and the protocol I am currently living. It includes the science behind the microbiome rebuild. It includes the histamine and the DAO enzyme connection, the resistance starch techniques, and recipes built specifically around foods that heal the gut lining and support microbial diversity without triggering inflammation. It also includes somatic practices for each week, because food and nervous system regulation cannot be addressed in isolation. And it also includes a day 31 reintroduction plan, because the goal is never long-term elimination. The goal is a gut that is healed enough that food stops being a threat and starts being nourishment again. You can find it linked down in the show notes. So if you are living with the calculation, the reactivity, the mental noise around food, this is the deeper work, and I am doing it alongside with you. And I want to close with something I am still in the process of fully understanding myself, which is why I rather share it now than later. The anxiety around food, the control, the calculation, the inability to just go to a cafe and order whatever you want without running the numbers, that is not a character flaw. It is not a mindset issue that needs to be worked through psychologically. It may be your gut telling you that something in the biological environment needs attention, that the system responsible for producing your serotonin, regulating your mood, and communicating with your brain through the vagus nerve is dysregulated, and it needs support, not willpower. You are not anxious because you think too much. You may be anxious because your gut is in distress, and that is a completely different problem with a completely different and very addressable solution. I am on the path right now, and I will keep bringing you with me. So start with the 3 breaths before your next meal, and come find me on Instagram at Alignment by Tuva. I am documenting this journey in real time, and I share every single day, and I want to know what resonates for you. And if you want to go deeper, the guide is in the show notes. And until I see you again here next week, stay aligned, stay curious, and most important of all, stay true to yourself.